Throughout the years, DBD has collected many IPs to show off, but with the new anniversary rapidly approaching, many of us have theories and speculations on what the newest edition, or editions, the entity's realm could be. So far, there are about 25 separate licensed chapters in DBD across survivors and killers, and I'd hope that the anniversary is licensed, but according to leaks, it might not be. But that's something we'll just have to wait and see about. On a specific note, however, I'd like to move away from anti-loop and stalling killers. The last 2 chapter killers were extremely guilty of this, and many like myself were bummed out to say the least. It can make for boring gameplay, which can become stale very fast. I'd also like to mention, these chapters don't have to be full ones. They could be paragraph chapters such as Ghostface or Ash Williams, who are released as standalone characters. So let's go ahead and get started, but right before I do, I know there are so many people that want Alien or Predator or even sequels to previous chapters such as the 3rd Resident Evil chapter, which I'd really have to say no to despite being a huge fan of the series. But these are ones that I personally would prefer and are much more different. My first one is Tomb Raider. I've been a huge fan of Tomb Raider since I was a little girl, and despite the series having some age on it, seeing as it was released in 1996, it is still going with many installments and reboots. Obviously, the survivor would be the series' protagonist, Lara Croft, an archaeologist turned Tomb Raider and explorer. She's had many looks throughout the series, but her iconic classic outfit is a must, but I could also see her rebooted outfit making an appearance as well. That and throughout the series, she has several incredible outfits that can make for some amazing cosmetics. Just take a look at some of these unlockable outfits from Tomb Raider Legend, but also take a look at some of these original Tomb Raider outfits and the comparison of the remake, Tomb Raider Anniversary. These would make great additions. I was thinking this chapter could purely be a paragraph, but since the series is so vast, we could also have several enemies, but I think most fitting would be the Unknown Entity from Tomb Raider Legend. The Unknown Entity is a creature that was summoned after being disturbed by one of Lara's colleagues during an expedition in Paraíso, Peru. The creature appears to be like a demonic apparition with arm-like appendages that have claws, and I honestly feel like its agility can make for interesting chase mechanics. As far as locations go, for this chapter, they don't necessarily have to line up lore-wise since the series is so big, but there are so many beautiful ones, like some of these. My second nomination would be Fear. This would be more likely as a paragraph chapter, but the unsettling horror behind Fear is something that I think DBD really needs. I think jump scare horror is fine, but I think the thrill and suspension leading up to the horror itself is something that makes it amazing. The story of Alma is kind of simple. After her mother died during labor, she was taken into the sole care of her father, Harlan Wade, but it was understood that Alma was unstable growing up. It turns out that she had telepathic and psychic powers, which her father then decided to experiment upon under Project Origin. The idea was to create soldiers with strong forces, but since she was much too young to bear children, she was placed into a coma until she was about 14, and then using an embryo spliced with DNA from the staff. Yeah, you see where I'm going with this. But the first experiment was not considered a success, but after another attempt, Alma was able to form a link with her second child, and that child discovered the truth of her suffering. But upon noticing this, the staff and Harlan decided to shut down the project, killing Alma. But years later, she was resurrected and is hellbent on revenge. Her abilities could honestly be a mixture of things, but the unsettling psychological horror aspect in the games is something that I could definitely see being translated into DBD. Lastly, I also have Until Dawn. Until Dawn is an amazing horror game with great visuals and could easily make for a great chapter in DBD. The story starts off with a group of friends: Josh, Mike, Jessica, Ashley, Sam, Chris, Matt, and Emily, all return to a cabin in the mountains hosted by the parents of Josh. However, shortly after arriving, the group realizes they are not alone and are actually being preyed upon by the Wendigo, a creature originating from the folklore of the Plains and Great Lakes natives. I'd also like to add, the entire premise of Until Dawn starts after Josh and his twin sisters Hannah and Beth invite the rest of the previously mentioned friend group to their parents' cabin, and during their time there, some of the group decide to play a prank on Hannah by having Mike, who Hannah is interested in, invite her to his room. You see where I'm going with this, but basically Jess, Emily, Matt, and Ashley are all hiding around the room until Jess accidentally reveals the group and Hannah becomes super embarrassed. I mean, obviously, who wouldn't? But Hannah storms off and out of the cabin where her sister, Beth, realizes what's going on and decides to chase Hannah all by herself. She is able to comfort her, but both of them are then cornered by an unknown man and fall off of the cliff and are never seen again. It's really tragic. Obviously, there can only be a certain number of survivors, but I have no issues with any of them being chosen, and perhaps the rest as legendary skins now that they've received their own character model, HUD, icon, everything else. Now for the killer, Wendigo are typically created through starvation, induced cannibalism, or possession, which makes sense since Hannah herself becomes a Wendigo after she consumes Beth's body to stay alive while she can after the fall. I can only imagine how creepy this would be in endgame, and the lore behind all of it ties it together pretty perfectly. And in terms of maps, I guess we could have the cabin, but to be honest, Ormond is pretty similar, so I don't know how they would do with a repeat of that map. That is all for my suggestions currently, some of my top 3 faves that I would love to see in DBD. If you guys have other suggestions, you can tell me them down below in the comment section. Also, do not forget to like and also subscribe as well for future videos. Also, side note, I've been doing a lot more experimentation in Blender, and I loved the thumbnail that I made. I just feel like it deserves its own little portion in the video itself. Just saying. Also, because I'm a huge Tomb Raider fan, I would love, love, love to have her in DBD.
ボディチェックを受けた時にちょっと借りてきたんです。
I got you, Miss Claudette!
こんなものが存在していたとは。